Hello students, the purpose of this video is to understand with the very basics the Faraday's law and Lenz's law. However, to understand, in fact, understanding Faraday's law and Lenz's law becomes very easy and it will take very less time once we understand what flux is and how that is governed, because Faraday's law and Lenz's law are talking in terms of a flux, and to understand the flux and Gauss law we need to understand first the concept of an area vector. So we are going to see step by step. We define area as a vector, and by convention, see, if area is a vector, that must be having some direction. What is the direction of the area? By convention, the vector associated with an area element of a closed surface is taken to be the direction of an outward normal. What is meant by that statement is, let us say this is a closed surface, and you imagine this is in 3D. Okay, now of this, it's having some surface area altogether. Let us say this is a small surface. Okay, and let us say ds is, area is a vector, I am saying ds is the magnitude of this small area and I am writing it as a vector. So it's having a direction, and we are saying that direction is always perpendicular to the surface. Let us say this is a surface. Now what if this is the area? What is the direction of this area which is perpendicular to the surface? And even if we will say that the direction of area is perpendicular to the surface, two directions are possible. This also is perpendicular and this also is a perpendicular. Now which perpendicular we will be assuming to be the direction of the area? The outward normal. Outward means what? See, from inside, if there is some charge or something like that, because of that the field is coming outward, right? So this is the outward normal, and this is called the direction of the area. Now in this direction, if we consider the ds magnitude, then that is called the ds vector, or mathematically that is written as a ds vector is delta s vector. If a ds we are saying, let us say ds vector is ds magnitude multiplied by n cap, the unit vector along that direction. Is it clear to everybody? Next step, we understand what is flux. Now see, flux in general day-to-day English, we use the word flux as mental flux, we say this way. The flux of the river, we say. So basically, you imagine, this is not the case what we are going to study, but I am giving you an example from day-to-day life so that you can relate it to what we will discuss further. Let us say there is a tube of certain cross section, and through that you imagine that water is flowing. Now this tube, you can imagine as if millions and millions, a huge number of a small, very narrow, tiny tubes are there. So like this, you can imagine that very large number of tiny tubes are there, and all the tubes are carrying water in it, so that in the tube water is flowing. In that case, what we can show is each line is a water flow. Each line shows the direction of the water flow, and then we will say that what is being faced here, if you will stand here or if you will keep a surface area here perpendicular to this flow, how many lines are going and hitting it? The relative number of field lines hitting a surface perpendicular to the field is called the flux. In this case, it's called water flux. Okay, if we take one area which is perpendicular to the field lines, these field lines are hitting it perpendicularly, then how many number are hitting? Remember, here there is a catch. How many number? I have shown here five lines only. You can show 3 more, add 8 lines only. So how many lines actually are going? So this is a relative number, we can say. For example, if a field lines are going like this, see here what is the field line going, and here Here it will keep how many field line are going. Here you face how many field line are going. The number is a 3 only. But if you take a particular cross section, let us say you are taking a cross section of this much area now. Let me show it with a different color. So 3 lines are hitting, and the same area if you will be taking here, only 1 line is hitting, right? So the relative field strength here, the flux is less, here flux is more. So the relative number of field lines hitting a surface perpendicular to the field lines is called flux. So simply, flux over an area defines the relative number field lines hitting the area. Clear? Now this field can be anything. So any field will be having some flux, right? Now if we will be considering an electric field, we will call that electric flux. If we will considering a magnetic field, we will call that a magnetic flux. If you remember, electric flux was always from positive to negative, right? Like this, it was from positive to negative, and at a particular point if you will see, this will be huge number of crowded numbers will be there, and we can consider them to be lines going parallel to each other. And a magnetic field line, you remember, it is always from north pole to south pole, right? So any field line, in that if some area if you are taking, the flux over an area defines the relative number of field lines hitting that area, as simple as that. Okay, let us say this is the direction of the field. This can be an electric field or a magnetic field. First I am just showing some field lines. Okay, it can be electric field lines or magnetic field lines. Now the area can be placed like this, that is just crossing it at a perpendicular, that means all the maximum number of field lines are hitting it. Or the area can be like this, if it is horizontal. Now all the field lines will be going either below or above, no field line is hitting it, right? And there can be a possibility that it is inclined at some angle. Now the area vector we have defined already. The area, the direction of the area is perpendicular to it, right? So let us consider this scenario first. This is like this, okay? This is like this, okay? So let me show that like this. So this is our case 1, when theta is equal to 0. How theta is equal to 0? The area vector is a perpendicular, right? So this is the area vector. Area vector is along the same direction as the field. Now first let us say this field is electric field. So that for electric field we can write it as E vector we are writing, right? So dot product of a field and area. So dot product of E dot S. Let us say S is the symbol for area vector. Now if E dot S is what we see, ES cos theta, ES cos theta, where theta is the angle between the two vectors E and S. Now see, E is along this direction and S also is along the same direction. So theta is equal to 0. This is the first case, right? It's perpendicular. Now this is called phi or flux. Phi is the symbol for flux, okay? Now since we are talking of electric flux, let us write it as a phi E. So phi E is equal to E dot S. Phi E is equal to E dot S, that is phi E is equal to ES cos theta. Now see, here if it is there, theta is equal to 0 case, so cos 0 is equal to 1, so electric flux will come ES, which is the maximum value when theta is equal to 90 degree, like this case, okay? Second case, this is our case 1. Second case is theta is 90 degree, so I am just showing it like this. The plane is lying like this, and the area direction S is like this now, right? So what is the angle between E? E is towards east and S is up. So angle between them is 90 degree. So this is the case 2, right? Case 2 will take ES cos 90. Cos 90 will be 0. So it is 0. Then third case is it can be at any angle. Okay. So let me take it like this, at any angle. Then this is your S direction. Let us say this is case 3. This is your S direction and this is the direction of E. Then theta is some angle theta. Then this will be ES cos theta. What will be ES cos theta? Electric flux. ES cos theta. And exactly similarly, if this was a magnetic field instead of an electric field, if this was a magnetic field, then what field dot area is the flux. This is always true, right? The flux definition is that. But here, if it is magnetic flux, then instead of electric field, we will take a magnetic field dot S. So this will be magnetic flux is equal to Bs cos theta, right? So again, for a magnetic field, if we write this as Bs 0 Bs cos theta, right? If we study Gauss theorem for electrostatics and magnetism, the same idea goes like Gauss theorem of electrostatics says that the surface integral about a electric field about a closed surface is given by 1 by epsilon naught times the charge present in the surface, which surface is called Gaussian surface. And magnetism, Gauss theorem of magnetism says that the closed surface integral of magnetic field about any closed surface is always 0. Now let us understand what they actually mean. See, in electrostatics, if we consider a positive charge and a negative charge at some distance, then wherever we are considering on a positive charge, equal amount of negative charge also will be there somewhere, right? So in isolated charge, we can consider, let us say all field lines are coming out of it. Okay, now if we take a closed surface, let us say that's a Gaussian surface, that closed surface is this, let us say. It is of any shape, but the criteria is it is closed, it should be closed. Now see, whatever is the field lines coming out of it, E dot ds, a small ds we considered, and through that how much field line E dot ds we found, and then we integrated it throughout the surface and we found out the all together electric flux. Now if we will find out the electric flux, can you clearly see that it will be a positive number? Some flux will be there, right? If it is a minus charge, it will be inward. If it is a minus charge and a closed surface is there, all the field lines will be coming inside. But there will be some value, right? Some non-zero value will be there, right? That is the reason EDS is equal to, and this is experimentally also proved, 1 by epsilon naught times a Q. However, if we are taking a north pole, you imagine there is a magnet. Let us say this is the north pole and this is the south pole. Now from north pole, field lines are coming and to south pole it's going. And inside the magnet it is from south to north, and outside the magnet it is from north to south. We can show another line like this, north to south outside, but inside it's going from south to north, right? Now see, anywhere you take a closed surface, let me say I took it here. Okay, now see how many lines are entering in. I have shown here to make you understand 4 lines only. It can be any number. If 4 lines are entering in, 4 lines are going out also, right? Here you see from the closed surface 4 lines are going out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines are going out and 4 lines are entering in. So net flux is 0. Wherever you take, net flux will be always 0 in case of a magnetism. Why this happens? See, there is no field from minus to plus. Always field is from plus to minus only in case of electricity. And that is the reason it is coming one non-zero value. However, the field lines, the magnetic field lines are continuous in nature. It is coming from north to south, but it is going again from south to north inside. So it is continuing. That is the reason wherever you take the closed surface, if you take inside also, wherever you take the closed surface, how many lines are going out of it, those many lines only are entering this. So the net flux, net magnetic flux is always 0 about a closed surface, whereas the net electric flux about a closed surface is 1 by epsilon naught times the charge enclosed in the surface. Clear? Now the last step. Now we are in a position to understand Faraday's law and Lenz's law. These are very simple, but they are talking in terms of flux. That's why we understood what flux is first. Let us say this is a magnet with the north and south pole as shown in the figure. We are bringing this north pole towards one loop, conducting loop. It's a conductor, a loop made up of a conductor. Now if we are bringing it closer, it is seen that a current is flowing through it. There will be a current produced in this in such a way that due to that current, what magnetic field is generated, that will oppose it. So a current is seen to flow in this direction. And if the magnet is taken away, the current direction is changed. If a current is flowing in the conductor, there must be one EMF induced due to this. See, this is called induced EMF because we are not having any cell connected to this circuit. That means one EMF source is not given. Only because the magnet is moving towards the coil or away from the coil, at that instant, in those times, the current in the coil is generated. And also it is seen that only when the rate of change, only when the flux linked with the coil is changing, then only current is there. And how much EMF is induced in the coil? If there is a current, there must be one EMF, right? How much EMF is induced in the coil? That is directly proportional to the rate of a change of a flux linked with the coil. That's what Faraday's law says. Induced EMF is directly proportional to the negative rate of a change of flux linked with the coil. And mathematically, if we write it, E is equal to minus d phi b by dt. And instead of one coil, if n number of turns are there, then simply it is minus n d phi by dt. That is, induced EMF is given by the negative rate of change of a magnetic flux. In observation, it is seen that as long as the flux linked with the coil are changing, then only current is there. If it is coming to rest, that means how much field lines are linked with the coil, that is constant, then current also becomes 0. Fine. Now let's understand the Lenz's law, which is talking of the direction of a current in the coil. Now the induced current flows in such a way that the magnetic field due to it opposes the cause producing it. Now this current, what is the cause of this current? What is the cause which produced it? Movement of the magnet, right? Case 1, let us say the north pole is brought near to this. Then current will be in such a way that the magnetic field induced by that induced current will oppose it. So if it is coming towards this, then it should be repelled. That's why this side will be north and this side will be south. The face of this coil, you think that this round coil is like this. Now this side is north, this side is south. Then towards north, the field direction, towards north, if you keep your thumb, the curling of your fingers shows the direction of the current, right? So it will come out. So direction of the current will be like this, outwards, like this it will come. Now if you take it away, Now north pole is going away and the change is being caused, the change in the magnetic flux linkage with the coil is going to be changed because of the movement of the coil. North pole is going away, so it will oppose it, means it will try to drag it. So this side, if north, this side now will act as a south and this side will act as a north. Then towards north, if you will keep, the curling of your fingers will show the direction of a current, right? If north pole is coming towards the coil in one particular direction, the current is flowing. If it is taken away in opposite direction, the current is flowing. Now you have understood what is Lenz's law also. But as far as the practical aspect is concerned, if one experiment like if we do, we can do it in many ways. For example, we will bring the coil, if we bring the magnet towards the coil and take away the magnet from the coil. The other way around, we can keep the magnet fixed and move the coil towards the magnet and take away the coil from the magnet. Now another fact, what was shown in the first part in that experiment also, instead of actual magnet, we can take one solenoid, right? And through that we can pass one current. Okay. Now if we'll give a current to it, if a current is being passed, then also that act like a magnet only, right? And if we'll make a switch on and off like that, if we'll give the connection and we'll leave the connection, we'll give the connection and leave the connection, that way also the current is flowing in that from 0 to maximum current, from maximum current to 0, from 0 to maximum current to 0. When we are doing that, means these field lines also are switching between 0 to maximum, and that is coming in contact with this coil, and that is generating a current in this coil. That way also we can conduct the experiment to prove the same thing what is said by Faraday's law, that induced EMF is directly proportional to the negative rate of a change of flux linked with the coil. That means the flux linked with the coil can be changed in any way, and all the times this will be observed only, right? And Lenz's law is obeyed in determining the current in all those cases. Is it clear to everybody? So one coil can be brought near another coil, one current carrying coil can be brought near another coil without any EMF source, then also current will be generated. This way we can do. Or with one coil we can bring one magnet and take back that magnet. That way also we can prove this. Or if we'll keeping the magnet constant, we will move the coil without a EMF source, that coil near and take away. That way also it will do. Or we will keep this coil fixed and take the coil near and take away, in any combination. So what we are doing is we are changing the flux linked with the coil, which is not having any EMF source. As long as we are changing that, induced EMF is generated in that, and according to Faraday's law, that induced EMF is given by the rate of change of a magnetic flux linked with the coil. And along with this, you have observed the first part also. You see this, after with this understanding you can see the first part, or after seeing the first part you generate some interest, and if you have understood already and you have left for a few months, then you can come back to this. In any way, both the parts together will give you a concrete idea of what Faraday's law and Lenz's law are talking about. Hopefully this session remained very helpful. Wish you all the best.